Hi, everyone. Donna Spencer coming to you this month from my kitchen in Houston, Texas. And I'm really happy to be here with you today. Sorry to be doing another video, but I'm actually on vacation. But I didn't want an opportunity to pass by without sharing with you a recipe that I came up with for you for zucchini sticks. This is using gluten-free panko breadcrumbs and plant-based milk. I'm going to show you, I think, a dredging technique that I've shared with you before, but I want to share it with you again because if I have already shown you this using eggplant, it's definitely worth repeating. It's a great recipe. I've used this as a foundation for making a zucchini parmesan, just like you would an eggplant parmesan, but I've also served it as an appetizer, just dipping it in some marinara sauce, actually right out of the jar. So I hope you find this interesting and fun. I know Jessica just got done sharing with you all the wonderful things that zucchini offers nutritional wise, and I really hope that you have a great time watching this video. Are you ready to get going? Okay, let's do this. So on my counter, I have done my mise en place, and I've got my station set up here for my breadcrumb mixture. I've got my station set up here for cutting my zucchini into sticks that are about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch thick. And then I've got my dredging station all set up. I've got some cornstarch, I've got some plant-based milk, and I'm going to have some panko gluten-free breadcrumbs. And this is what's really going to make this gluten-free, is using those panko gluten-free breadcrumbs and using cornstarch. What makes it dairy-free is that I'm using plant-based milk. This one happens to be oat because that's what I have on hand this week, and nutritional yeast. And I know we've talked about nutritional yeast before, and some folks have said that they really don't prefer the flavor of traditional yeast. If you want to go ahead and use some Parmesan cheese, I only have a tablespoon going into 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. So there really isn't a lot of dairy going into this. So if you're trying to be dairy-free and you don't like the nutritional yeast, just leave it out. But if you do like that flavor of that nuttiness of the Parmesan cheese, you know, you do what works for you, and no judgment on my side, because there have been times when I have used Parmesan instead of the nutritional yeast. But today I wanted to show you the nutritional yeast. So the one thing that I do want to talk to you a little bit about here are the zucchinis. I don't know if anyone has noticed in the past several months, produce has been really all over the place in terms of its consistency at the grocery stores. So you'll see here that these zucchinis that I have really 3 different sizes here. And really, I bought them just to make a point to you that when you're buying your produce and you're baking something for your family, you want to try to pick up the produce that is most consistent in size. And I really just did this for demonstration purposes only. What I'm going to use today are these 2 pieces right here, but you can see these 2 pieces are really on the larger side, and this is really on the smaller side. So again, just making sure that you're consistent with the produce that you're picking out, because you do want everything to cook evenly. And this is really going to help you do that. So I've gone ahead and I've washed my zucchini and made sure that it's all the grit has been taken off of that. So I'm ready to go ahead and start cutting these up. So I'm going to use some techniques that I've shown you before in terms of really trying to minimize the waste that I'm creating. And I'm just going to cut off a little bit on the ends here. And I'm going to do these in thirds. So because these are quite long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut those into thirds, giving myself really nice, even sticks. Okay, I'm just going to cut off a little bit of that. I'm going to eat that a little bit later. So let's go and make sure that these are all consistent in size. Again, the reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that they all cook evenly. So now I'm going to cut them down one slide, and I'm just going to spin it, and I'm going to try to get 3 sticks out of each one, 3 cuts out of this. So there's my one cut on the sticks, and there's my second cut on the sticks. And you can see these are pretty even. So those are going to cook up very nicely. I'm going to repeat that. Going to keep going here. Actually, all these little bits that I'm cutting off, I'm going to eat those later. I'm not going to be throwing those out. Trust me, as you know, I'm not one to waste. We'll give one more. We'll go ahead and do one more. And you know what? I guess I can get 3 out of this. I was going to go 4 on this, but use your judgment. Go ahead and use your judgment on that. So now I've got my zucchini sticks here. If you see one that's seeming like it's a little bit too large, don't worry. Just go ahead and trim that off. It's fine. You can eat those little pieces later on. So now I've got all of my zucchini. I love zucchini. Okay, so we're going to get all of these lined up so that they're going to be ready to go for my dredging station. So before I go ahead and put my zucchini in my first dredging station of the cornstarch, I've got a half a cup of cornstarch in here. And you know what? I might as well go ahead right now and throw in a half a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of pepper. We want to make sure that we're layering each layer of flavor, and putting a little bit of salt and pepper in your cornstarch is really going to help you get that layering of flavor on every single component here of the 3. Let's address our breadcrumb mixture. So in this container, I have 1.5 cups of panko gluten-free breadcrumbs. So to that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of my nutritional yeast. And as I said before, please feel free to go ahead and use a tablespoon of Parmesan cheese. Also, feel free to leave it out if you don't have either on hand. I've got 1 teaspoon of Italian spices. I've got a half a teaspoon each of garlic and onion powder or granulars. I like using granulars. A half a teaspoon of salt and pepper. And then one thing that I've been using a lot lately is smoked paprika. It really gives it a nice, again, another layer of nuttiness, smokiness. And if you're not using Parmesan or nutritional yeast, it really does add something to the mixture there. So I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on here, and I'm going to give this a couple of pulses. I don't want it to be really fine, but I also want to break it down a little bit more because these pieces of the panko gluten-free breadcrumbs are really just a little too large to do that last dredging in. Halfway through, I'm going to give it a little shake because I want my spices to get incorporated all through it out. And I also want to check to see, I don't want this a fine powder. So let's just open this up so I can show you. I don't want a fine powder, but I also don't want those big chunks. So it's still not quite where I want it. So I'm going to go for a little bit longer here. Okay, I think I'm good there. I think I like where I am here. So let's just see. Yeah, I think that's great. So I've got my breadcrumb mixture, and you can still see that there are some bigger pieces here. It's not totally fine, and that's really, actually, probably one of the best times I've done that. So I'm really happy with the way that looks. And it does have a little bit of a pink hue to it, only because I did put in that smoked paprika. And it's also going to help with the coloring on the end. So we are ready to do our first station of dredging. So in this baggie is the easiest way to do the first dredging. On a traditional dredging, you typically have your first dredging as flour. But again, to be gluten-free, I am going to use cornstarch. Throw all these in here. I'm going to seal this up and give it a shake around. This really is the easiest way instead of having 3 bowls. My mom always had 3 bowls set out, and I just find that this is a much easier way to dredge. And then I can actually shake off each piece as I take it out and dredge it then in the plant-based milk and then put it into my breadcrumbs. So I'm going to shake off the zucchini. I'm going to put it in the milk using a wet hand, dry hand technique. I think you guys have seen me do this before. And we're just going to get all of these breaded. And then I'm going to bake these in a 425-degree oven for 25 to 15 to 25 minutes. Really, it's really going to depend on your oven. So you're just going to have to try this once or twice to see how your oven reacts to baking these at the thickness of the cut that you put it at. I'm just going to line these up, get those nice and organized so I can maximize my surface on this small little tray that I've selected for today. And again, I want to point out the dredging technique of having one hand wet, one hand dry really just minimizes the amount of mess that you're going to have. And it's something that I try to do because otherwise you have a handful of, you know, coated with the breadcrumbs in milk, plant-based milk, and it just gets a little messier. This just goes really quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up breading these in my dredging station here. I'm going to pop them in the oven at 425 degrees. And when these come out, I will come back and we will see how they baked, and I'll show you how I serve them. So I've just pulled my zucchini out of the oven, and I think they look amazing. I'm going to be serving these with a little bit of tomato sauce, kind of in the spirit of a mozzarella stick. So I'm just going to go ahead and plate these up, and they're crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside. You're not going to get that string cheese effect, but I really, really think that these are delicious. This is a technique that you can use with any kind of vegetable. I've done the same exact thing using cauliflower, onion rings, and it really is a great way to get that deep fried, crunchy vegetable appetizer without having all the calories of deep frying them. I hope you give it a try. I think you're really going to like it. And let Jessica and I know if you have and what you think. So that's all for today. Thanks everyone for joining me, and we'll catch you next month.